Hello, Battle Brother. It is I, Fangbone. Thank you very much for the sharing and supporting of the video.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.
But either way, I'm glad that we could get things figured out, that we could connect here today. So how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very good, thank you. I'm loving the weather. I'm thankful to be kind of nearing the end of the promotion cycle for this first record and thinking about next things, and also finding some closure on this first project. And yeah, I don't know, it's all good.
Awesome. I love to hear it. And we're here to talk a little bit about that first project here today. So are you ready to jump on into it?
Sure, we'll do it.
Okay, awesome. All right, so from what I can see, you've been singing and songwriting for quite a little bit of time. You've been trying to put together this debut release, this album, for some time. So when exactly did this rendition of Taylor Abrahamse begin to start to come together?
This rendition? That's an interesting way of putting it. If you mean the record itself, then really that began as far back as 2016, when I applied for a Factor grant. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing well in voice acting. I'm doing well in composing for TV. I've always been obsessively writing songs and always thought that I would be a singer-songwriter. But also, this other stuff's going really well. Maybe life's telling me not to explore this stuff. But what the hey? Let's apply for a couple grants, see what happens. And I got the Factor grant on the first try, which is not common, which is nice. And then a Toronto Arts Council one as well. And I went just for a day of Canadian Music Week early in 2017. And I was taking a seminar at the time, which was all about kind of deconstructing the thoughts that we have going into every interaction and going into life. And, you start to realize how much everyone's thinking the same things. So it's like everyone's going to these conferences all feeling awkward and nervous. And it's like, if everyone's feeling that way, it really, to me, seems like it's just something that exists in the head, and there's nothing about it that's in the real world that's actually tangible. It's like everyone on the streetcar all afraid of each other and darting their eyes back and forth, but it's all in here. So I just decided I'm just going to be relentless today and just be totally out here and see what happens. And so I was literally waiting in lineup for something, but I realized, wait, I don't need to wait in this lineup. I'm signed up. Why am I just waiting around? So I saw that there was a booth that had a guitar, and I asked if I could play it, and they agreed. And so it was kind of like a way for me to just kind of quickly have a free audience for myself at this conference. And a guy was there about to leave for the day. His name was Eddie Kramer, and he really liked me, and we chatted for a few minutes. And then he called me that night and wanted to work with me. I didn't think too much of it at the time because, you can be a little jaded in the music industry. And even if someone is a production legend like he is, doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best fit for what you're trying to do. But I thought about it, and, I just thought I can't pass up that opportunity. So we kept on talking, and, and he kept following up with me as well. So I was like, okay, this guy's serious. It's not just, business talk. It was a genuine desire to work with me. And so we went from there. It was a long process for the completion of it, but actually the real spark of it happened very quickly, where as soon as he was really on board, I decided, okay, well, obviously the universe is telling me to pursue this singer-songwriter thing a lot more again. And, I put far too much into it throughout my life to just kind of let it go. So and actually what ended up happening was during that summer and early fall, I wrote a ton of songs, and kind of the best songs I'd ever written up to that point, and very much with Eddie's encouragement behind me, propelling that, and really having a very rigid life of just like constantly writing and setting full days aside just to try and write really good songs. And I still have a ton of others that didn't make the cut for whatever reason. But so most of the songs were new songs, like not from prior to that meeting. And so we bed tracked it all near the end of that year, with a band that I'd put together exhaustively. It was like my whole life was just about making this record, and like every second was me trying to make the most of every moment leading up to it. Like even before the bed track recording, I like ritualistically like listened to my favorite albums the night before to like put me completely in the space and zone of like, okay, this is the moment, this is the thing. But as it went along, being so significant and intense about this record, and viewing it as like my chance to make it and all this stuff, was also kind of killing me, and especially as it went along, and there were things that, just mistakes that happen or life that happens and profoundly complicates making this thing the way that you intended. And you have all these expectations on yourself that just won't shut up. It got really dark about halfway through trying to finish it. Recording, lovely, delightful. Even, a certain amount of the mixing and comping was delightful. But, halfway through it was like, have I ruined my life? Have I like thrown away tens of thousands of dollars into something that just, I dug a hole for myself I just can't get out of? And like, what would make this album seem great, even if it's not great? Maybe if I like, and this is going to suddenly get dark, but like for a few minutes there, I thought, what if I like just killed myself or something? Because then it would be like I joined the 27 Club, and they always get much more credit, so like I was just so hell bent on all that. I'm glad that you enjoy that, because that's how it's supposed to be taken. Like it's funny,
I've had those moments, so I understand that exact mindset where it's like, what if?
What if? And so I ended up realizing I've got a lot of programming in my head that isn't there to help me. It's kind of in the way. And so this album and the process of making it and kind of having all the stars align, and I'm working with this legend who's going to get all of my music heroes to hear it, and he's going to, change my whole life, and we're making this masterpiece together, and all that gunk. Going through all that was so essential in my growth, just to inadvertently see how brainwashed we've been by TV and everything about the hero's journey and how everything's supposed to turn out. And I get to use that going forward with my further albums, and just ultimately be a lot more freed up. But it took something to get there, and it's still something that I work at every day. And it's really helped shape the direction of the next thing that I'm making, so I've gotten a little grant for that so far, but I'm working on more and figuring things out. But anyway, yeah, ultimately, I think that the album, has gotten a lot of positive feedback, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me. Even if, certainly there were things I'm doing that I'm going against the grain of how you're supposed to promote yourself and how you're supposed to do things in, the TikTok, Spotify universe. And, but I'm content with that. In a way, all that stuff I've got really mixed feelings about, and I don't want to be part of the problem with what I'm doing. And I don't want to like degrade music itself. If that makes sense? Because I think we cheapen the work that we make sometimes, depending on how we promote it and putting it into all these little things that are just part of a scrolling feed. No one's absorbing it, and no one's feeling it, and no one's really experiencing it. And it's just a big, massive digital marketplace, like some Arabian bazaar with just all these people yelling and trying to get each other's attention. And I just want to get enough people to just come to my bazaar and like, this sounds so dark, but like stick them in the back room and just show them my stuff. So, you know, obviously there's got to be a bit of a balance of all of it, but I kind of want to train people to be very cautious about social media at the same time with what I'm doing, and use it very sparingly. And I don't know, I'm still figuring everything out. I've answered about 15 questions now, that imaginary questions in my head. Do you have any more specific?
Oh, don't you worry. I always have questions within the questions. It's who I am. So I plan on getting to the streaming and the other stuff otherwise, because I know that that's something you spoke about sort of in the epilogue of the album there.
Yeah.
So I want to get to that too. But I also want to acknowledge just the incredible like pieces that went into a lot of this, with how you said, where first off, for any artist to get a playing spot at a Canadian Music Week is an incredible opportunity. And it's not to say that you even had that. It's just you happen to be in that one space, because with Canadian Music Week, there can be multiple conferences going on at the same time too. So you happen to be in the right area where they have a guitar, and the right person just happens to also be in the right room just before they leave. And it's for you to say.
But see, you watch enough movies, and that's the way that it sets it up. Is just like there's just some kid who's lost, and like the light shines down and gives him a purpose and gives him clarity. But all of that, it didn't happen that way. It was literally just, I'm going to make the most of this day. And there were a ton of other things that I did as well. I was just continually being open to opportunities. And then that's one that showed up. And sure, it led to a lot of cool stuff, but you know, it's like, I think everything's a bit of a double-edged sword. You know, like if I had worked with some young hip producer instead, and we'd been making electronic pop music, I'd have a bigger audience by now, you know? But I got to have this very creatively fulfilling experience instead. You know, it was just a different experience. And the funny thing is, I think I applied that year to be a proper performer at CMW, and I didn't get in. Like I don't quite understand the rationale there, but then I kind of snuck my way into performing just for people on the conference floor. That's what happened, right? It wasn't the thing of going around with your card and being like, hey, come see me at 8:00 tonight at, you know, this pub that's 2 miles away, as if they're going to come, you know? So yeah, I think that it was just a smart thing to do. That's all.
Well, it's not to say it's that movie thing. It's more so to say it's sometimes you never know where those seeds that you plant, where they're going to go or where they're going to lead. And you can always go and do pop music or whatever else later on down the road too. And this is an experience where you got to release a different piece of yourself, and you can always grow and move from there. So let's speak a bit more about this piece of yourself and how Eddie Kramer helped to bring it to life. So how did Mr. Eddie Kramer, a pretty storied producer in his own right, how did he help this production? What did he bring to your music?
Well, I'd say that he was very good at being hands-off and selectively hands-on with me, you know, because he knew that he was working with someone who had a picture and a vision. And it was comforting actually how often our visions lined up. You know, where it was like, I want to have like Rhodes on this song, and I've got this string line idea that should show up right here. And he's like, yes, that's great. Yeah, that's right. Or like, we got to get like a 3-part harmony right there. Yes, exactly what I was thinking, you know? So it reaffirmed to me that a lot of my own instincts are good instincts. But also, you know, he taught me a lot about how feeling is key in what you're doing. And that's a very easy thing to lose sight of today, because we're trained to hear mistakes as mistakes, you know, rather than a little thing that humanizes something that may seem to detract in that moment, but in the flow of the whole piece makes that thing 30 seconds later just scream out in some extra beautiful way. He sat me down to, for example, like he engineered everything Jimi Hendrix did, right? So there was a time where he was mixing Out Like a Light, actually my newest song, and but also kind of the same time in a different room, he was working on this 5.1 surround sound remix of, I think, Axis Bold as Love, or some massive record like that. And so he sat me down and in this state-of-the-art studio and just got me to listen to that, experience that, because he was just trying to teach me about the power of being raw and like just letting the mistakes be there and letting everything hang out. And it was a really overwhelmingly beautiful experience and something that stuck with me. And it's like, it depends on the type of song you're trying to make. I think part of the dilemma is like, there are some songs that are very raw on the record, but there's also ones that are meant to be kind of a picture of something very polished. So it was a balance of that. And I don't know if I went too far with trying to clean it up or not far enough or whatever. But either way, I learned a ton about learning to love what you have, because only you can have that, and don't try to airbrush that out. You've got one chance to be for what you are, to exist in the universe. So make opportunities for that to come out. You don't have to like it, but it's you, and it's the one chance for it to happen. So let it out, So I think it was a reaffirmation of that, working with Eddie. And he just a brilliant, exuberant man. He was evidence to me that living a life in music, like he's like 78 now, living a life in music, just it really is a good life. The level of energy that man has, and wit and playfulness. Yeah,
Wow.
That's what you want.
Wow.
And when you're surrounded by that, it has a really good effect on you. So I'm incredibly thankful, even just for knowing him, even if we didn't do anything together, just thankful to be in his presence.
Mm-hmm. Even just to take a little bit of the fruit off of that knowledge tree that is Eddie Kramer.
Yeah, exactly. And I took opportunities whenever I could to just like sit down, and even if I didn't understand the engineering side, just trying my best to learn what was happening there. Like when he'd start mixing a song, just like intensely focusing on how the drums and the bass are sitting together first, and working with the other engineer to just like really tune those in, and just like move that to 2.2. Yes, that's it. And how 50 years of experience just allows him to know exactly what to bring out and how to use all these pieces of gear in a really optimal way. And I think that I also learned just, again, how unreliable my own mind is, because the amount to which at times I'd be like, this just doesn't sound right. And then, as time goes on, I realize how lovely it really is. And it's just different. It's different. And it's okay to be different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So he taught you how to be honest, and not only how to be honest, but how to accentuate that honesty.
Yes. And I think that I resisted that lesson at times. And I certainly can regret that. But I also, it's tricky, man. It's tricky because you care so much about what you're trying to make, and you're trying to have full perspective on it, and trying to just always do what's in the best interest of the project. And sometimes it doesn't seem like that humanity is of interest. It can just sound like a burp or a fart, rather than something that's actually helping someone connect to it. That's all. Anyway.
Hey, you never know where these pieces of yourself, once they become let out into the world and they become other people's property as well, you never know how it's going to influence them or how it's going to help them grow either. So you just have to put it out there and let it do its work. Let those children grow up and become their own beautiful things.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is that, okay, if we're going to go with that metaphor, maybe it's more that the children were ready to leave the nest sooner than I let them, that's all. But I let them go. I let them go eventually, and I hope they'll forgive me.
Hey, it's as every parent does. You got to let them go, and you got to let your creations go too. And you just have to trust that they'll do the beauty and they'll have the magic that you planned for them.
It's kind of cool if we look at it with the parent metaphor, because it's like every album is like a new mistress, and a new set of children, and another chance to do things better without telling the other children about the other mother.
You can still come over. We'll still play with you every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, about that. I kind of have 3 other families spread out throughout the world.
I love it. So let's take a quick dive into some of these children and what they mean to you. So you mentioned Out Like a Light, which very powerful music video. The music video, yes, but the song itself also incredibly powerful, and just the words and the lyrics and the metaphors of throwing the fist and everything else. And then just to see the video and how that adds like an entire different aspect to just the throwing of a fist and everything else into it. So does the song and the video, do they have that connecting theme, or was the song something else that you built where later on it was just like, oh dang, this works?
What's funny is that was the song that I put the absolute least thought into entirely. It was Eddie's a rock and roll producer. Generally, he's wanting me to do these songs that are a bit more ambitious and just real slices of like classic singer-songwriter. Let's just throw him a bone and give him like a fun little rock and roll song. And it was also, I wanted something that would act as a bit of an intermission on the album, just a palate cleanser, a breather after, I think the song before it is Endless Heaven, which is like me trying to write the saddest song possible, so I just wanted a breather. And so I think I basically wrote it in shorter than the length of the song. You know what I mean? It was just like, okay, yeah, da, 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 da. All right, and then the chorus a couple times, and Out Like a Light. Okay, and then it's done. All right, you know what I mean? Like I was trying to like shut off my mind, like the song is saying, and just write it. And that's why it's like Out Like a Light. It's an intermission. It's a breather. And then my mom has Parkinson's, and she was taking part in a boxing program for people with Parkinson's. And then my dad made that connection of, you should do the video there. Oh, of course. Amazing. Great. Perfect. And also, my parents are boomers. They love good old rock and roll. I think a lot of boomers love good old rock and roll. So it's a way to give back to the forgotten generation, and I like that. But also, my mom's an amazing person who, despite having that, continues to be really active and sharp. And it took a lot for her to just be in the video and let herself, it's always been hard for her to be on film, but to have the courage to let herself be in that, I think was just a real breakthrough for her, especially given her condition. And I'm really proud of her for that. And I think that really helps with the, at least with her sense of shame around it. And I think a lot of other people's too, I'm not expecting to cure Parkinson's disease with it, but I think that what the video does do is it reveals more possibilities for community and for rediscovering physical control through programs like that boxing program. And it just helps people with Parkinson's get freed up from the stigma of it all. And that's fabulous to me. So I'm really proud of that and pleased with that. And, you know, and music and your children will do what they do. So, you know, time will tell what else these songs provide for the world. Or maybe not. That's what's so weird. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm just going to put this out there. I would love because there's a Leonard Cohen quote in the song that goes, it's a bleak song called The Future, and he's like, there won't be nothing you can't measure anymore in the future, you know? And so I thought, and there's like a country that measures the gross national happiness for that country, right? I think it's like, they're like right outside of China or something like that. But they were also the first people who dealt with COVID the best. People who put happiness as a priority for their country, which is interesting. But anyway, I bring all this up to say, I think it'd be cool if there was a way that you could measure the overall cultural impact of a piece of music, and there was like a number that we could assign to it. And on Spotify, instead of just seeing the streams that something's getting, you can see, but it's it's only got 3,000 plays, but it's a 4.2 on the influence scale. So it's like that artist profoundly influenced all these other artists who made all these other things that had a ton of plays or whatever, you know, like, because it's so hard for us we have no way of really understanding the impact of anything that we've created. But still intuitively we know that it feels good what we've done, you know.
Well, that'd be amazing.
Even if it's a seed can become a frickin' tree 3,000 years from now, you know.
Well, absolutely. It's sometimes you don't plant the seed knowing so that you can see the fruit off the tree. It's so that your children and your grandchildren and whoever else down the road. It's like we said earlier. Sometimes you plant a seed not knowing where it's going to lead. Sometimes you don't see all of the fruit or the benefits of that tree either, but you plant the tree knowing that the tree has the ability to make an impact.
Yeah, exactly. And like, if there was even just one person who was profoundly touched by the Out Like a Light video and, you know, took part in one of those Parkinson's programs and found a community and found belonging, like that's priceless. And that has profound ripples. So, and I've gotten some really nice comments from people and direct messages about people being really moved by it. So, yeah, that's great.
Awesome. And it's a video that shows hope. It shows community. It shows strength. And even just your mom's message at the end of the video too is like that really hits a heart, no matter what your perspective or background should be. You learn to appreciate it through the video, and then to hear your mom sort of just make the analogy she does at the end is just it really hits. It kind of got me in the feels.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I think what I'm trying to do is take on difficult things with lightness and joy and a sense of playfulness, you know, and show people that the inner kid never has to go away. But also not to just be, you know, naive about it and like be toxically positive about it either. You know, to not shy away from the realities of life and things at the same time.
Absolutely. All right. So let's dive into another one of these songs here, which is a single that released the day that we're recording this. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about I Don't Care Anymore, a little bit more of a different energy here.
Indeed. So this was actually a song that I wrote years prior to meeting Eddie and all that. And it was during my first real breakup in my entire life. And it's easier to write songs about social causes and things like that than it is to just, the songs about real disappointment and pain that you go through um, are special things that only come around so often, and all you can do is keep writing and sharpening your toolkit so that when you're going through a major life experience like that, and the channel's open, that it's all just going to come out. And so that was a really good example of just a song that I think is quite well constructed that came very quickly, because it was, directly from real life experience. And ultimately, you can't write the best songs in a bubble. So, yeah. In fact, one thing that's interesting about it is the bridge, which is this very simple bridge about, the whole song is about trying to deny that you don't, to deny that you care still about the relationship and about the person. And for me, I was dealing with the loss and this thing ending, because it was a very perplexing relationship. I was younger, a lot younger, and a lot more dumb. And she actually asked me to like move out of the place that we were renting, and it was heavy. And one of the last days there, I was looking out the window of this room and just seeing a couple walking down the street together and thinking, okay, well, I got to write this bridge. What do I see? And I just saw a couple walking through the snow together, clutching each other's arms, like down on Ossington. And I just want to walk through the snow with you. Yeah. And I think that's it's a really nice bridge to just have something that simple and direct. And I obsessed over the vocals on that. I must have done like 100 takes, putting myself through hell, trying to make like the perfect emotive vocal. Whereas, again, it goes back to the thing I was talking about before, about kind of not letting the kids go soon enough. When we were first bed tracking the song in Nashville, a little bit, like kind of around the same time that Eddie was involved, but I had already set up a trip to Nashville to lay down some of the music. So I was working with this guy named Fred Mullen, who's a fabulous producer. And we laid down the bed track at the end of the day, tried to lay down like 6 songs. Most of them, nothing has happened with so far, actually, interestingly enough, because I wrote better songs, and, but there was that one. And I did a couple vocal takes. I was like, okay, well, these are scratch vocals, whatever. But he begged me to just use one of those vocals. He's like, it's so real and beautiful and honest. I wasn't warmed up. I had a coffee beforehand. That's not how you are supposed to sing. What are you talking about? But I mean, that's a guy who has a ton of experience and, recorded a lot of, my favorite artists as well, and a bunch of Jimmy Webb albums, and got to be the last person to record Linda Ronstadt before her Parkinson's affected her ability to sing. Or I'm sorry, is it Parkinson's Linda Ronstadt has, or
I'm not sure.
It might be something else. I might be wrong there, but regardless, yeah. And even then, I still resisted that and was like, no, I'm going to do 100 takes. And I think I did ultimately end up with something better, but it was hard. It was really hard. And for doing those vocals, I just thought about it from every angle. Like, I just want to walk through the snow with you. One take, I'd be thinking about, my grandparents getting older and wanting to spend time with them. One take, it would be thinking about like, a childhood pet that passed away, like whatever I could do and trying it from all these different angles and trying to just get the ultimate vocal out of myself.
Just and that's that one lyric, as you say, it's very simple, but sometimes it's those really small things. And even with like a grandparent, when they're getting older, it's a lot of those small things that we're going to appreciate when things go on, like just being able to walk with somebody through the snow. So it's a really beautiful lyric and moment to really put together there. I love
Well,
it.
I think that life, when I always look back at like, what are the highlights of my year, looking back at each year, it tends to be stupid little things where I just really allowed myself to have fun, or to experience a moment. And so that's really had me re-examine how I live my life and I'm making it a lot less about, doing everything on the list. And much more about like kind of like that country, adding in my gross happiness index as like a priority for myself, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is a good goal for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm very pleased with I Don't Care Anymore. And it's, I filmed the music video for it a few days ago, which will be out next month.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. And it's a good way to end the whole promo cycle for the album. Last song on the album. Hardest, ironic, somehow it was like definitely the hardest song to make, probably just because of how difficult it is to feel like I had, done the right vocal. And, being the thing about being a perfectionist is uh, you don't want to give yourself closure. When the irony is closure only comes from just being like, okay, that song is done, or okay, that relationship is done. It's like, but I need closure. I can't have closure until I do this song perfectly. But I can't do this song perfectly. It's like I created a system for myself where I could just never be complete. There's a vicious circle. So only in actually just letting go the album in whatever state it's in could I let it go. It's that Bob Newhart. There's this Bob Newhart sketch where it's like he's a therapist, and she's like, "Oh, I'm having all these thoughts and doubts," and he's like, "My advice: stop it." What? What do you mean? Well, just stop it. Just stop doing that. Okay.
Okay.
It really is that simple, and we make it so much harder for ourselves. So, I think about all that, and because it was really amazing. Once the album came out, I thought, oh, I was anticipating that moment for so long, and then it was just like, okay, yeah, well, it's done. Oh, moving on.
We're
Like,
here.
yeah, well, the world is still here. Nothing's blown up, and yeah, I don't know. It's a great lesson in like all the significance I had added to everything. That's all. And yeah, ultimately, I'm very proud of that song, but I'll limit myself to maybe like 10 takes going forward. That's all.
That's fair. That's ultimately fair. All right. So there's so many more questions I could ask of you, but I've already taken so much more of your time. So I'll ask my last question.
Okay. Or I'll make them super short, and maybe you can ask a few. But and I'll have super short answers if possible.
No,
but go ahead.
Because if this is the last question, that means we can talk again in the future.
Oh,
yes,
I see.
Yes, and that's a beautiful thing.
Wow.
So, through this process, we've talked about a lot of the things that you've learned and how you've grown and otherwise. But what would you say maybe the most important takeaway, the most important lesson, or how has this process helped you grow as a human being?
Oh, well, I mean, I think that's what I've been talking about the entire time. In terms of a thesis statement of all that, I don't know. I'm trying to distill a lot in that. I think I'm figuring that out, but ultimately just that, life really is what you make of it. and all the stuff, have compassion for yourself with all the stuff going through your mind, and also getting that a lot of it isn't real. And I'm just thankful that I cultivated an opportunity for myself to really discover that. Because you can also hear insight day in and day out, but sometimes you really just have to go through something in order to get it.
All right. I love it. And it's so very true.
Yeah.
It's what they say is sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can realize to get back on your feet and to get back up.
Yeah. And how cool that I have a statement. I have a collection of songs to represent that period in time, that who knows what someone could get out of that.
Absolutely. Or how else it could help someone rebound and become a better person, and what they'll go on to create. And it's a beautiful cycle.
I hope to get a 7.2 out of 10 on the global influence scale beside my Spotify numbers.
Yes, we'll have to start a petition for the global influence scale here. It's
I think that it might take 1,000 years for us to get so good at data mining and like have microchips in everyone's heads that we could actually really start to figure that out. But even then, I bet there'll still be like, bot farmers who are trying to like modify the gross influence scale. Oh, it just never ends.
Send money to somebody in India to boost your gross influence scale in terms of music that really helped people when they were down.
Yeah, that's messed up. Oh, it just never ends. Oh, man. Have you seen that footage of like, there's people who literally just have walls of cell phones.
Tablets.
Yeah. And it'll play 40 seconds of the song and then go back to the start. And it's just, oh.
Because 40 seconds is the bare minimum you need for it to count on Spotify, apparently.
Exactly. Yeah. All that stuff is messed up.
Gotta love the system.
And even as an artist, it's scary because, okay, we were going to talk about Spotify and stuff briefly.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think, even on my Spotify right now, it's like fans of Taylor Abrahamse also like, and then it's like all these weird bot accounts. So I think that some of the things that I've paid to try and get followers and things like that are probably not that genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard to sniff those out online sometimes, and you're paying to get on playlists and all this, and you're hoping for the best, and you have no clue. And you're like, I found these playlists through a reputable source, so it's like, okay, but maybe like, who can I trust? So streaming seems like an absolute disaster, and obviously I wrote substantially about the financial dilemmas with streaming as well. Artists are just trying to get things up to a cent per stream, which shouldn't be that tricky. And like Tidal already does it. I'm trying to get everyone to at least just use Tidal and to be patrons for artists. The thing is, Spotify literally has a system where they can't pay artists much better. They're in between a rock and a hard place, and a lot of it is label interference that kind of forces things in that direction, as well as bots that are watering down the pool that artists are receiving payment from. But Spotify doesn't have a lot of incentive to stop that because they're getting 30% of the profit regardless, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm. So many factors.
Yeah. And so I made these tracks that play after my album that are credits tracks, because a lot of streaming services are terrible at just listing the credits of who was involved in a project. I mean, the assumption is because everyone's just making music with their laptop in their room, that it's going to be 3 or 4 people. So who cares anyway? We can list those 3 or 4 people. But if you're trying to make like an album like mine, there's a ton of people involved, and they can't get acknowledged. And if they can't get acknowledged, then people can't find them and people can't hire them. There's a huge ripple effect. So I made these little credits tracks, and I think I'll keep doing that for records. I went way overboard with it because, I was still in OCD Taylor mode and thinking, oh yeah, well, that'll be easy. That'll be easy. No problem. But and made like a weird meta credits cafe where it's like it's the 60s, but it's not.
See, I loved it.
Thank you. I'm glad. It was a way for me to just connect with people during a pandemic as well. And like, let's all create something together somehow in all this. So it was a nice way to collaborate with my friends. And there's a ton more that have been made for the deluxe edition of the album, by the way. And I'm not totally sure when that's coming out, but I've got like 20, 25 more from people of them making these little songs that are performing the credits. And
wow.
Yeah. It's I'm pleased I did that. A little Trojan horse of sorts. But it's also tricky to advertise that and to like put press behind that, because unless you're an artist with clout, people tend not to really care about what you're saying and what you're doing. But I'd love to normalize the audio credits thing. I think that's just an interesting thing to do anyway. Regardless if you're also including PSAs about how streaming sucks in it or not, Whatever
your message happens to be, because I've heard the audio credits done like literally only once before, and that was by Lupe Fiasco on one of his first albums. I think it was technically his first like major album, where his last song is literally a 6-minute thank you track to a lot of people. And that was the first time I ever had heard it. And then for you to come in and to actually add like the aspect of this is a cafe, and like it added a whole lot more depth, and I really loved it. And that's one thing that like I'm currently working on like a debut EP right now. And I've been talking with my producer about it, where he's like, can I like keep my tags in the tracks? And I was like, abso-freaking-lutely, if you want to. Is like, I want to do a thank you like shout out track at the end, like that, like even old hip hop songs at the end of old hip hop songs, they would shout out a few different people.
Exactly.
Where it's just like, at the very least, like, why not put an entire track to like, yo, this is what got me here, yo. It's like, there's a lot of different steps, and it's the same as like buying that old CD or that old vinyl and being able to like pick out the liner. And like, I know I'm not the only person that did that, where you go through like all of the thank yous to be like, oh, who's this person? Oh, they did this. Okay. Like, where are they now? Like, and like, even back in the day, like reading a bunch of CD liners, I always had that thought where it's like, oh, I really want to work with this person because I've seen them thanked by like 5 different bands I listen to. So that's definitely like the type of person I want to work with.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's definitely been times where I've listened to an album and I love it, and then I realize, oh, it's Phil Ramone. That was Billy Joel's producer, and he's on this too. That makes sense. And then it frees you up as an artist to explain to people what type of thing you're looking for. And for example, Eddie Kramer has a very distinct sound. A lot of producers do have like a thing that they're known for and something that they bring to it. So you can say like, I want that Kramer sound. Like, well, I'm Eddie Kramer, so okay, sounds good.
Well, I know how to do that.
I know how to do that. So yeah, exactly. I think that's great that you're thinking of doing that, and I definitely encourage you to. And if you want to, even have something in it that encourages other artists to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like a shout out to mine, or no, you don't have to do that, but
I probably will, actually.
Yeah? Okay.
I'll shout out you and Lupe for inspiring me to do it. Absolutely.
Sweet. Well, thank you. I just, something, cause it's like, so that people can hear other examples of it and get ideas and continue to get excited about the idea, I think that's what's good about it. Anyway, I know that I'm rambling at this point. And
I love rambling too.
To be like 20 minutes, and I'm sure we've got stuff to do. As much as I'd love to keep talking.
Oh, I say 20 minutes, but I have gone well over an hour before. It's all if the conversation's flowing and everything's going good. Why not? Why not? Cool. So I've had an absolute blast. Like I said, we can always reconnect in the future. There's so much more to find out about you from, like you said, there's more upcoming music. your voice acting, everything else that you have on the go. So I'm sure we'll have so much more to talk about in the future.
I would really like that. This has been a joy.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.